Hello YouTube. I'm just gonna make a short video real fast. About a year ago I did the active exhaust on my 16 Mustang here, and I had quite a few people actually message me asking me how I did the power portion of the exhaust. I didn't really talk about that. I just showed how I had to modify the actuators to make them to where you can make a direct connection and then do what they call, reversing the polarity. So this way you can make the motor spin one way and then spin another way via a momentary toggle switch. So I was just going to show real fast essentially what I did with that, show a couple pictures of the things that I bought online for the switch portion and for my connecting portion. So it's kind of sort of get into it. Okay, you can see in the picture on the momentary toggle switch how it's essentially a 6-prong momentary toggle switch. It has a nice long lead on it, plus it also has a little cigarette lighter or 12 volt charging type port plug on it, and then a long pigtail that comes off of it with a splitter for you to run dual exhaust and not just like a single exhaust. Like some people might put like one single cutout on a car instead of a dual cutout, so it actually uses a little T for that. But the problem that I was running into, the reason why the other picture where you saw the little connectors, was when you look at it, it has like a kind of like a connector that you see like on an AC wall adapter, so because it would normally plug into like an aftermarket cutout system and not this factory type system. So I have a whole drawer full of those AC wall adapters, but I wasn't sure if any of the ones I had were going to fit. That's why I got those other two plugs, but it worked out to where I was able to actually use those without actually using those plugs that I got. So I'll use them on a future project. But pretty much just what I did, get up underneath here, try to see if we can see it a little bit. As you can see, I was able to get a hold of the factory wiring for the car, which is right here, that came from the actual actuator itself. You see I just ran it down, and you can see right here is my two connectors. After I put them on, I taped them up. One goes that way, one goes this way. This is that pigtail you saw in the picture. And then what I did is there's a little grommet here in the lowest portion of the floor where your spare tire, or if you just have one of those tire inflator kits, is, just roll the carpet back, and I just ran it through here. You see here's the the splice for that little pigtail. I just ran the one end up inside here, so this way I can make the connection inside the car. So this is one less connection underneath the vehicle that I got to worry about water getting into. And then I just siliconed around it just to make sure I don't get any water actually in my floor, like if I hit a big puddle or anything. But in that one picture, this is your little T, so this way one can run one way, one can run the other way. But if you don't have the original wiring, when you're gluing your actuator back together like you saw in my video, you could always just drill a couple holes and actually just run a set of wires out of it and then connect your connector to it. You always want to put a connector on it, so this way if say you got to remove the exhaust, you don't have to cut your wires. So if you don't have the original factory, you can do it that way. I just got lucky enough and was able to get one with this harness on it, but it's not a necessity for doing this. I guess you can say this aftermarket method, I guess you can say. And then inside the car, the reason I ran it up through the trunk is because instead of trying to run that wire all the way along the bottom of the car, trying to zip tie it along the whole bottom chassis here, come up through the floor, come up through the floorboard, or come up through the firewall, I figured it was just easier to run it that way and then run it around the seat. Not to get off topic, but just in case anybody doesn't know anything or never really are familiar with these, you have your seat adjustment here, and you got the one in the back. If you actually lift the one in the back and move it forward, when you push this back, it'll go back to your original setting without having to constantly readjust it. Just not to get off topic, but a lot of people don't realize that. But I just ran the wire through this area down here, kind of tucked it down inside the plastic. I kind of moved the cushion out of the way so I can get it in there. And then what I did is I just kind of, sorry, I'm not wiggling my camera too much, but see how this plastic's kind of loose? I just tucked it up underneath here as far as I could. And then what I did is I ran it all the way, along this plastic here, Same thing, just kind of just tucked it up underneath here. I didn't have to remove any of this. I just kind of pushed it in there. and just ran the wire up and then ran it straight across. I put my toggle switch right here. This is the lever for the tilt steering, you know, for your steering to go up and down, in and out. Now my little cap actually turned a little bit, the little icon, but my switch actually goes side to side. I have it set up to where if to the steering wheel, closes it, away from the steering wheel, opens them up. So it's open, close, essentially on mine. And what I did for the power supply is I really didn't want to plug it in down there and then have the wire all hanging out and all be in the way. So I ran it back this direction. I did have to extend that wire a little bit. I ran the wire up underneath the seat. I put a little hole in the bottom of my center console somewhere and I actually mounted it right in here. So that's actually my power supply for the actuators. Since the actuators don't take a lot of power, you don't have to have a big hard wire or anything like that to make them work. This is more than adequate. I haven't had any issues with it. And then if say you go to a repair shop, I don't know if any of y'all worked in a repair shop before. I have in the past, and whenever we see toggle switches in a car, our curiosity gets to us and we kind of want to know what they do. So we'll you know, we've tinkered with them. I know we shouldn't, but we have. And these actuators, they move really quick. So they only take about a second to open and it's about a second to close. So if you have someone tinkering with it and they don't hear the actuator move, they might burn up your actuators or the motors in there by overloading them, by holding the toggle switch too long or something like that. So when I take it to a repair shop, all I do is I just unplug it, and then I ain't got to worry about anything, you know. And then when I'm ready to go for a ride, I just plug it back in. The other reason I did it this route instead of hardwiring into the car is a lot of these newer vehicles, their electronics are extremely sensitive. They have a lot of modules and controllers and all this kind of stuff that control like every little thing of these cars, and they're very sensitive. And if say like you did something like this and say you tied it into a fuse, that kind of thing, and say water got into your connection or something like that and shorted it out, and as it's popping the fuse, there could be a chance it could short something out, like it can short out your seat modules, you know, or like your window module, because these cars, you know, when you open the door, the window actually comes down a little bit and then you close the door, they come back up. You know, it can damage all these sensitive electronics to the car. So by doing it this way, it completely eliminates it from the car itself. It's essentially completely separate, and all it does is if say it shorts out, it's going to pop the fuse that's inside that right there before it does any damage to the car. And obviously if the little red light's not on, that's why they're not working. You just change the fuse in there, put it back together, try to figure out where you have a short. It might just been you hit too deep of a puddle. You just don't know. But that's the way I did my power. Is I ran my power supply in here, ran it underneath the seat, under here, you know, to my toggle switch, and then the pigtail went back to the back half of the car, and I plugged it in from there. So I try to keep it as simple as possible and make it to where I don't have a whole lot of issues to deal with. So it, you know, simplifies it. So obviously, like I said, if they're not working, I'll just go straight to that fuse, you know, and if that fuse is good, then I'll check the fuse on the car. But most likely the fuse that's in that little plug is going to pop before it does anything to the car. And then and as you saw in the video, by using a factory 18, it's a direct replacement. So it pretty much went right back up into place. The exhaust tips are nice and even, they're nice and straight, they're not all kind of tipped to the side or anything of that nature. So, but that's essentially how I did the electronic portion on my car. I hope this answers any questions that anybody has of how I did mine. Being that it's not an 18 and up, the car's not going to have the software to run it through the car. I don't know if you can get like a tuner that would allow you to do that. I haven't really done any real research on that. So I just did it this way because this way I can just open and close it at my leisure whenever I want. I can open it, close it, you know, as I'm driving, whatever I need to. I don't have to go into my settings and go into all this kind of stuff. It's quick, simple. I can open it up, hot dog the car, close it as I'm pulling into like the neighborhood or something like that if I want to make it quieter. But hopefully this answers any questions that anybody had on how I did the electrical portion of this. And if you have any questions, leave me a comment, and thank you for watching.